nature of knowledge, the culmination and stasis of the intellectual faculties, has been discussed in the previous essay. It implies a contradiction in terms. Understanding is the resolution of this antinomy. It is the chief quality of neshama, the intelligence, an idea insusceptible of true definition because supra-rational and only appreciable by direct experience. One can say at most that it is independent of any of the normal modes of motion of the mind. It is a significant illustration of the truth of this Kabbalistic theory that women often possess most excellent intelligence while totally incapable of the knowledge and reason on which logically it is founded. Samadhi, at first onset productive of bewildering ecstasy, automates in this understanding, one may say, understanding the nature of knowledge, the culmination and stasis of the intellectual faculties, has been discussed in the previous essay. It implies a contradiction in terms. Understanding is the resolution of this antinomy. It is the chief quality of neshama, the intelligence, an idea insusceptible of true definition because supra-rational and only appreciable by direct experience. One can say at most that it is independent of any of the normal modes of motion of the mind. It is a significant illustration of the truth of this Kabbalistic theory that women often possess.
But the fact that the tariffs are affecting everybody, now everybody's in the same boat, right? It's us against the world. We can't win, right? Trump is, he is so convinced that we've got the nut, right? We've got the winning hand. And even, what's his name today said the same thing. The Secretary of the Treasury came out and said, China thinks they have the cards. They're holding deuces. They're not holding deuces. They got a strong hand. We got nothing, We're just
They have a very strong hand.
So, Peter, I have a question for you. Given your history in the market, I've been myself in the market for about 30 years, and we've seen over time, going back to, say, long-term capital management as an example of how certain events can happen in the economy on a political level or whatever that can expose crowded trades in the market that are over-leveraged and cause a crisis. So right now, I think the one that's being exposed is the Treasury basis trade, which is over-leveraged by some hedge funds between like 5 to 10%. And that trade is blowing up big time. Can you talk about that? I assume you know about that. And what's the volatility in the Treasury market?
Well, look, I think a lot of people are long and wrong in the bond market because they expected bonds to rise when the Fed cut rates. And this is another thing that I nailed. For almost a year before the Fed cut rates, I was saying that when the Fed finally cuts rates, that's going to be the top of the bond market. And long-term rates are going to start to rise as soon as the Fed starts to cut. Now, that was way against the consensus. And I was 100% right. When the first 75 basis points of cuts produced a 75 basis points rise in long-term yields. Everybody was surprised by that. That's exactly what I was forecasting would happen. And a lot of people are still waiting for the rate cuts to bring yields down. And in fact, Donald Trump, one of the things he said is like, we have sky-high interest rates. When he was saying, we need to bring down these sky-high interest rates. They're not sky-high. Interest rates at 4%, 4.5%, they're low. And when you consider how much debt we have, they're super low. And so I think that bonds are a massive bubble. I think some of the biggest losses are going to be in the bond market, even more than the stock market, especially if you're leveraged long. So, I mean, it's almost like treasuries are the new subprime, right? because that's what's going to happen. This is a sovereign debt crisis that we're going to have. And when you have a sovereign debt crisis, there's no bailouts because the government bailed out the mortgages by substituting its credit. Right? The government did a TARP program. The U.S. government bought up all this toxic debt and issued treasuries. But when the treasuries are toxic, that's the end. There's nothing. There's no bailout. Right? So yeah, I mean, look, the financial system has never been in worse shape because we didn't swallow our medicine after 2008. We didn't clean up the mistakes that caused 2008. We tripled down on them. And one of the when they had these hearings in 2009, they wanted to have these hearings to try to figure out why we had the financial crisis. And I tried to get invited to those hearings because I knew why, because I predicted it. But they wouldn't invite me to speak or testify. Instead, every person who testified, not a single person who predicted it testified. In fact, all the people that were oblivious to it, who said it could never happen, they're the ones that showed up to explain why it happened. Now, of course, they don't know, because if they knew why it happened, they would have been with me warning about it. And of course, everybody that they invited to testify, they all had the same conclusion. It was, we didn't have enough regulation. We didn't have enough government, right? And so we just needed to give the government more power. We needed to give the Fed more power when it was the government that caused it. But, so they just used the financial crisis as an excuse to further empower the institutions that caused the crisis. And so because we did that, we are so much more screwed up now than we were in 2007, 8 before the crisis, which is why this next crisis is going to be so bad, which is why, Trump shouldn't have poked the bear. I mean, it shows you the arrogance to not realize the fragility of the country. And I know Donald Trump knows that if we lose the dollar's reserve status, because one of the things he's been threatening to do, hey, if I see you moving away from the dollar, I'm going to hit you with tariffs. He said that. Nobody better move away from the dollar or I'm going to tariff the hell out of you, right? So he knows that that's kind of our Achilles heel. Yet he still risks it. And that's the ultimate. I hear people say, well, would China sell our treasuries? Oh, they would never do something that stupid. Why would they sell our treasuries? Of course, duh. People say, well, China would really get hurt if they sold our treasuries because, it would make the bond market go down and they would take a hit on their treasuries. So why would they do that? No one ever says, well, what would happen to us if they sold the treasuries? It's way worse for us. In fact, if China sells its treasuries, it's good for China because they were going to lose a lot of money if they held them. So the sooner they can get rid of them, the better for China.
Peter, isn't there?
I think a lot of people on Twitter focus on the stock market, but where you can see, the fragility you talk about is in the bond market. And it just seems like the average, Twitter or financial expert doesn't really understand how bad things are and how levered up funds are and how quickly this whole thing can really
everybody is clueless. They think the Fed is full of a bunch of geniuses when they're actually economic imbeciles. They created all the fires that people credit them for putting out, and they put them out with gasoline, so they're always going to come back worse. People think that they were able to solve the problems because they don't understand the problems that they actually made worse. And that's why, I'm never surprised by this bad stuff because, it's exactly what I say is going to happen. They're constantly surprised by all the things that they never thought were going to happen, which is why, when Powell said that, we're not going to have stagflation, he said, I can't see the stag and I can't see deflation. I was on my podcast saying, well, that's going to go down as subprime is contained and inflation is transitory. I said, there's so much stag, there's so much inflation. It's amazing to say that he doesn't see any evidence. There's evidence all over the place. He's got to be completely blind to that. So the guys that we think are so smart are clueless. They're absolutely clueless. The economic professors, the ones that rise to the top, they're a bunch of Keynesian fools. That's why they have their jobs. And the guys, the Wall Street economists, are mainly there to help Wall Street sell bonds and stocks to the public. So they put a ribbon on everything, and they're a bunch. They go from academia to the Wall Street firms to government. They all, because you don't get a government job unless you're Keynesian, and Wall Street wants to hire the guys that used to work for government, and it's all like this little circle of morons, and they're all surrounded by themselves, and it's like an echo chamber. And they all like reinforce their moronic economic views, and so this is going to be a disaster, But anyway, I'm not going to go anywhere because we got a lot of people on the spaces, so I'm willing to keep talking, but I got to take a couple-minute break because I ran out of water, and I have I'm on antibiotics now, so hopefully that gets. I've had this thing, and it's been in my throat, but I got to get more water, and I got to pee because I drank so much water. Now I got to go to the bathroom. So I got to take like a 5-minute break. I'm going to leave my phone right here, and I'm going to come back. So if everybody sticks around, I'm going to come back. And again, what I'm going to do is I have a bunch of people that are that can speak, but what you guys should do is just once you've got a mic, just raise your hand, put the little orange wavy thing up. And then I'll just call on you. So, and then as somebody speaks, I'll let you drop, and I'll make somebody else a speaker. All right, I'll be back in a few minutes.
Hence also any aspiration of a partial order, any which depends for its wisdom on the justice of our perceptions of our own needs, is almost certain to be tainted with the very poison of which nature would purge us. There is in fact only one magical operation of whose propriety we may always be sure, and that is the increase of our sum of energy. It is even indiscreet to try to specify the kind of energy required, and worse, to consider any particular purpose. Energy being increased, nature will herself supply clarity. Our vision is obscure only because our energy is deficient. For energy is the substance of the universe. When it is adequate, we are in no doubt as to how to employ it. Witness the evident case of the will of the adolescent. It is also to be well noted that moral obstructions to the right use of this energy cause at once the most hideous deformations of character. Hence also any aspiration of a partial order, any which depends for its wisdom on the justice of our perceptions of our own needs, is almost certain to be tainted with the very poison of which nature would purge us. There is in fact only one magical operation of whose propriety we may always be sure, and that is the increase of our sum of energy. It is even indiscreet to try to specify the kind of energy required, and worse, to consider any particular purpose. Energy being increased, nature will herself supply clarity. Our vision is obscure only because our energy is deficient. For energy is the substance of the universe. When it is adequate, we are in no doubt as to how to employ it. Witness the evident case of the will of the adolescent. It is also to be well noted that moral obstructions to the right use of this energy cause at once the most hideous deformations of character. Hence also any aspiration of a partial order, any which depends for its wisdom on the justice of our perception. Here, the great obstacles are these. Firstly, the misunderstanding of self, and secondly, the resistance of the rational mind against its own conclusions. Men must cast off these two restrictions. They must begin to realize that self is hid.
Dr. Rowland, hello, Dr. Rowland, I've been patiently waiting. They won't start, it'll kill you. Yet let it not be forgotten that though she be love, her function is but passive. She is the vehicle of the word of Cockmar, wisdom, the old
Behind
father,
an independent
is the will of the old one, and thus they err. With grievous error and dire, who prate of love as the formula of magic. Love is unbalanced, void, vague, undirected, sterile, nay, more a very shell, the prey of abject orbs, demonic. Okay. Love must be under
but the realization, born sooner or later, of agonizing experience that its whole relation to Ruach and Nefesh with matter, with the universe, is and must be only painful. The senselessness of the whole procedure sickens it. It begins to seek for some menstruum in which the universe may become intelligible, useful, and enjoyable. In Kabbalistic language, it aspires to neshama. This is what we mean in saying that the trance of sorrow is the motive of the great work. This trance of sorrow, which must be well distinguished from any petty, personal despair, any conviction of sin, or other black magical imitations, being cosmic in scope. Comprehending all phenomena, actual or potential, is then already an opening of the sphere of neshama. The awareness of one's misfortune is itself an indication of the remedy. It sets the seeker on the right road. Nothing but the realization, born sooner or later, of agonizing experience that its whole relation to Ruach and Nefesh with matter, with the universe, is and must be only painful. The senselessness of the whole procedure sickens it. It begins to seek for some menstruum in which the universe may become intelligible, useful, and enjoyable. In Kabbalistic language, it aspires to neshama. This is what we mean in saying that the trance of sorrow is the motive of the great work. This trance of sorrow, which must be well distinguished from any petty, personal despair, any conviction of sin, or other black magical imitations, being cosmic in scope. Comprehending all phenomena, actual or potential, is then already an opening of the sphere of neshama. The awareness of one's misfortune is itself an indication of the remedy. It sets the seeker on the right road. Nothing but the realization, born sooner or later, of agonizing experience that its whole relation to Ruach and Nefesh with matter, with the universe, is and must be only painful. The senselessness of the whole procedure sickens it. It begins to seek for some menstruum in which the universe may become intelligible, useful, and enjoyable.
The market was going to
In
collapse.
Kabbalistic language,
And how that was going to create financial crisis. This is 06. So I told everybody, I've got a way for you to profit from this, right? I come to my workshop. I'm going to show you how you can short subprime mortgages, which of course they ended up making a movie out of this, right? The Big Short and everything. It was all about this trade, right? Except I was the one lecturing about it, right? I wasn't sitting in the audience. I was the guy that was telling everybody what was going to happen. So I probably had about 75 to 100 people came to my, which, out of the 3,000 that were there, right? So a small part of the people even came to hear me out. After I told them, one of the jokes that I said, you have 3,000 people here. In a couple of years, you'll be able to have the whole conference in one hotel room. Because I said, most of you guys are going to be out of jobs because the mortgage market's going to collapse. And I said, but I have a way for you to make some money on that. So these guys come, and I give my whole spiel about what's going to happen. Of those people, one guy invested $500,000, and I sent him back $5 million less than a year later. So he made 10 times his money, from $500,000 to $5 million. But the point is, one guy out of 3,000, and I laid it out whole in the real. I told him exactly, and these guys should have known because they were in the thick of it. They should have seen from ground zero the fraud, right? The phony appraisals, the liar's loans, the nothing down. I mean, these guys were right at the epicenter of the bubble, the mortgage market. And yet I couldn't convince these guys that real estate was going to go down. Nobody can even, whenever I was trying to tell people about the subprime, the thing that where I always lost them was that in order for it to work, real estate prices had to fall. And they were like, well, that's impossible. They're never going to fall. Well, why not? Why can't they fall? Look how much they went up. Can't they go down? No. People were just conditioned to think that real estate could never fall. So once people believe something, so you have so many people that just believe the wrong thing about the Fed, about the economy, and they're going to be massively surprised by what happens. But anyway, so who wants to talk? Just raise your hand. Remember, I got a bunch of people with mics, but if no one wants to raise their hand, Clint, you've already talked. Do I got any new people?
I'm happy to wait.
All right. Well, I'm gonna. Let me see. Okay, there. Well, go ahead, Clint. No one else got. Oh no, here this guy. Noah's got his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you think that gold was giving us a sign? Gold has been rising. I mean, it kind of almost doubled, really. I think it was at like 1600 about a year and a half ago. Do you think that gold's rise was sort of warning us? And especially the last couple of weeks, maybe a month and a half, we saw gold go from like 2,000 to 3,000, like literally randomly. So do you think that gold was warning us that whole time that this was going to happen? I mean, we all knew the tariffs were coming, but we didn't think they were going to be this fucking bad.
Well, gold wasn't going up just because of the tariffs. Gold was going up because the world was de-dollarizing. That was the warning. That, gold went up 50%, and the public was selling the whole way. I mean, I know that because I'm in the business of gold, and sales have been very slow. I also know that the entire rise from 2,000 to 3,000, the investing public was selling gold. There was net outflows from GLD, the gold ETF. There's been selling of gold stocks. So the only buyers have really been foreign central banks. And it's like, well, what do they know, right? Because I've been saying that this is like insider buying. The central bankers are the insiders of the fiat monetary system. And the fact that all these foreign central banks are buying gold and not treasuries and foregoing the yield.
We didn't think they were going to be this fucking bad.
They know a lot.
Well,
right?
Gold wasn't going up just because of the tariffs. Gold was going up because the world was de-dollarizing. That was the warning. That, gold went up 50%.
People don't understand.
The public was selling the whole way. I mean, I know that because I'm in the business of
money,
gold, and sales have been very slow. I also know that the entire rise from
when Greenspan was Fed chairman, and this shows you how long ago it was, he used to say that even though we weren't on a gold standard, he ran monetary policy as if we were. And what Alan Greenspan said was that if he sees the price of gold going up to $400 an ounce, he knows that he's too loose. And if gold goes below 300, he's too tight. So he used the gold price as a reference. So if, according to Alan Greenspan, $400 gold meant that the Fed was too easy, what the hell does $3,000 gold mean? I mean, so the whole time that Powell has been claiming that they had restrictive monetary policy, gold was saying, you're too easy. You haven't raised rates enough. That's the problem. That's what I said. The Fed stopped hiking too soon. We never actually got to restrictive. But the other way you know that is that the debt never stopped. The government kept borrowing. Government debt hits record highs. Household debt, credit card debt. All the debt kept growing. Well, inflation is an expansion of money and credit. How can you claim to have tight money when credit keeps growing? So credit kept expanding the whole time the Fed was hiking. That means they never got to the point where they hiked enough. So we never got restrictive. We've been accommodative the entire time. Right? So, I mean, the Fed is responsible for the calamity that's about to unfold. Again, maybe Trump is the pin to prick the bubble, but he didn't inflate the bubble. The Fed did.
Why do you think that he went from reciprocal tariffs to punitive tariffs?
But the other way you know that is...
In order to... I think the whole thing is unconstitutional, and I think it's illegal.
Totally.
But the reason that he had to say reciprocal was that was his justification. Because Congress gave the president, seated the president with the authority that constitutionally belongs to Congress, specifically the House of Representatives, because tariffs are revenue bills, they're taxes on the American public. But Congress gave the president the authority to impose reciprocal tariffs if he wanted to. And what they meant by reciprocal was they put a 5% tariff on our, lumber. We can put a 5% tariff on theirs, right? Tit for tat. Whatever they do to us, the president can match it, right? So what Trump did is he took that authority for reciprocal tariffs and he just redefined reciprocity to mean that even if a country has a 2% tariff, we can hit them with a 30% tariff and call it reciprocal. And the way he was able to do it is he concocted some crazy formula that took that country that had 2% tariffs and made it look like they had 60% tariffs. And then he said, well, because they have 60%, I'm only going to go 30. See, I'm being a nice guy. I could have done 60, but I'm only going to reciprocate with 30.
But I think his formula was more on it was based on the trade imbalance. And so if the United States spent more in Vietnam, for example, and there was a huge tariff or a huge deficit, then he would be punitive in the amount of tariff to make up for that gap.
Yeah, I mean, basically what Trump did is he assumed every deficit was due to hidden tariffs that we couldn't see, right? If we have a deficit with this country, they must be cheating with some non-tariff barriers that we can't quantify, and so we're just going to assume that there are tariffs, and we're going to reciprocate against those non-existent tariffs, which to me is a lie. He doesn't have the authority to do that. You can't change the meaning of a word to take power that was never given to you. So, I mean, the whole thing is illegal. And so one of the things that might save us is that the courts strike it down. But how long does it take for that to happen? Somebody has to sue with standing, and then the court has to hear it. But again, and the Republicans that control Congress are afraid to stand up to him.
So they'll just do whatever he wants.
Yeah, they got no spine. I mean, Rand Paul will do it. He's like the only guy out there that I see, but then he's always the only guy. Unfortunately, we don't have enough Rand Pauls.
But why go so aggressive and against every country? And then he's saying, not only do you have to make up for these deficits, but the money you cost us in the past, you're going to have to pay for that too.
Look, it's nonsense. There's no rhyme to reason. It's, as I said, I think he's on a mission from God. He just thinks he's, the holy man. Now,
by the way, what you were explaining is called the Messiah complex.
Yeah, all right, Davey, that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
What does it take for that to happen? Somebody has to. There's a guy with his hand up. He's got like some Chinese symbols or something in his name. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Long Traveler.
Hey.
Hi, Peter. I just want to say thank you so much. I'm a fan of you for almost 20 years. I watched, 2007, those two fools laugh at you on the CNBS. And I was shorting the stocks, shorting the banks, home builders, listen to you at that time. So, very big fan of you. And I think you are the most honest economist. And also, you are the only one makes any sense in this country. It's a travesty that Trump did not use you in his administration. I hope in the future you'll be one in a position to help American rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, nothing would make me happier than to be able to, go down to Washington and actually advise him to do the right thing. But right now, I think the environment around him is way too toxic for that to happen. I mean, he's also surrounded by people. The crypto people wouldn't let me anywhere near him. But all they care about is making money in their tokens. People say, well, Peter, you're just saying this stuff because you own gold and you want to make money. I own gold because I know the government's going to do the wrong thing. But I'm not encouraging them to do the wrong thing. I want them to do the right thing. But my investment portfolio is based on them not listening to me. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to shut up. So everything, when people say, oh, you're just talking because you want to make the price of gold go up. The price of gold is going to go up whether I talk or not. But I want the government to do the right thing. If they did the right thing, I would make less money than I'm going to make by them doing the wrong thing. So if they do the wrong thing, I make a lot more money. But I don't need to make that money. I'd rather them do the right thing because I care more about the country than about my making money. But if the country is going to collapse and I can either make money or lose money, well, I might as well make it, right? Because those are my choices. I can profit from the collapse or I can lose. But, hopefully I make enough money that maybe I can make a difference. I mean, because if I were to run from office, I ran for Senate one time, and I didn't. I self-financed to a degree, but I also raised money.
I just want to say that you're doing the right thing. What you just said, you said many years ago. I heard you made this point at least maybe more than 10 years ago that you don't want to make this money. But I just want to say that what's coming, maybe Trump is basically, just like you said, putting the bubble. This bubble was created maybe more than 20 years ago. Trump had nothing to do with this. But
Trump did keep it going. Like the years, Trump claims that when he was president, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world, which is not true. While he was president, the bubble that he inherited from Obama got bigger. That's all that happened.
Exactly.
And then he handed it over to Biden. But here's
If I were to run for office,
he says that foreigners have been ripping us off, and that's the problem. Well, they were ripping us off when he was president the last time, and he claims we had the greatest economy in the history of the world. And so if the economy was so great during his first term, when we were getting ripped off, then what's the problem was getting ripped off? And we had this great economic boom when he was president the first time. Because the trade deficit got bigger under Trump. It didn't get smaller. So he claims we had the greatest economy ever. And during the Trump term, the 4 years, the trade deficits hit all-time record highs. So he inherited a big trade deficit from Obama, and it got much bigger when he was president.
we had the greatest
He claims that we had the greatest economy in the history of the world while he was making the trade deficits bigger.
But the problem is that he has way more trouble on his hand other than in economic difficulties. I mean, he has to allow those games to play. But anyway, my point is that you are doing the right thing, and in the future, if everybody understands what really happened in the past, you will be the only one guy proved to be correct. For all the thing and everything you said in the past. So you will be the only one.
Yeah, I think I have been completely right on everything I've said about the big picture of the economy, going back to even before the dot-com bubble. I was critical. I just didn't have a big enough fan base. But I remember during the dot-com bubble predicting that, the whole thing would implode and these stocks would crash. And so I got the dot-com
Well,
bubble
he was
right.
making the
I got
trade
the
deficits
housing
bigger.
bubble right. The only thing is that I didn't get the timing on the real crash, the final crash, because they kept finding ways to make the problems worse by kicking a can down the road. But none of the problems have been solved. Every problem that I warned about has gotten worse, just like I predicted it would. I mean, I always said that it would get worse because it's not going to end until we have a complete crisis.
And I just have a question that I don't think this is a tariff war or economic war. I think this is maybe a currency war. The Chinese already ready to have their chip system running in 2016.
I was critical.
They're totally ready to push it, all over the world. So I think this is a totally currency war, and I think Trump knows that he has to destroy the FRN, the reserve notes, and I think he's pushing for gold as well. The reason they want to audit the food lots, they already give a lot of signs of what they actually plan to do. So I think Xi Jinping and Trump actually probably play the same game, and we're going to say it. Everything will start to turn.
Yeah, the problem is that Trump is just not going to. The way he's gone about this, because if you tell everybody that it's going to boom and it's going to be great, and then it crashes, who the hell is going to believe anything you say? So if he says, "Oh, I know what to do now," it's like, well, what do you mean? Why should we believe you? You told us that this wasn't even going to happen. You said that everything was going to be great.
So I think this is
okay. I mean, he didn't call it, bite the bullet day, time to atone for our past sins day, austerity day. He celebrated it like everything is going to be great. Like, hey, let's have a big parade. This is our liberation day. I mean, he was asking us to celebrate our own funeral.
Well, it has to be dead first, right? I think the Liberation Day will be liberate us from the U.S. dollar that is nothing backed by nothing.
Right, so that's what's been giving us our high standard of living. That dollar, we've been living off that dollar.
Yeah, but it's ending now.
It's going to boom and it's going to be great.
But it surprised me before. It's been very resilient. It keeps surviving. But it can't.
Well, it's not longer than we, it's not longer than we thought. Right?
I'm 100%. If the tariffs stay where they are for the next several months, the dollar's toast, because the tariffs will implode the economy and cause the financial crisis. Because the people who are impacted by the tariffs won't be able to pay their debts. And when people can't pay their debts, the lenders are in trouble. So the tariffs will implode the whole house of cards. So the question is, will they get rid of them in time? And then, yes, if we'll get a bounce in the market, but it may be a dead cat bounce. It may be that it's impossible to put these worms back in the can.
I think Chinese already decided not to sell American anything anymore.
They are not going to
use the dollar anymore, and they're dumping the treasury bill right now. So I think their plan for a long time already they are rolling now. So the next few months will be pretty bad for us.
He's already decided not to sell American.
Let me look at the value of the yuan, because the Chinese yuan was on a record low today, and let me see what it's doing tonight. It's down again slightly, 0.15%. We're at 7.35. But if we start to see the yuan rallying, if we start to see the yuan strengthening, that would be a big sign that it's about to hit the fan. Yeah, because right now
Thank you so much, Peter.
Still going down. All right, but anyway, who wants to raise their hand and speak? Because all I got is Clinton, but he's already talked a lot. We got to get.
Well, let me ask you another quick question. It ties into a lot of this. So, Peter, you're old enough to remember that in the late 1990s, the culmination of Newt Gingrich in this working with the Senate and the House with President Clinton, the combination of the two, managed to get some balanced budget working. Why do you think that we haven't been able to get to that point again from 30 years ago?
Well, first of all, there was a lot of sleight of hand going on with that balanced budget, because first of all, they balanced it during the dot-com bubble, and so in the late 1990s, they got a lot of tax revenue coming in from capital gains and people selling their stock options and stuff like that. And Robert Rubin, who was the Secretary of Treasury, he's the one that started to refinance the national debt short to artificially reduce the interest expense on the national debt. So we had a bubble, and so we got extra tax revenue. We monkeyed around with the term of the debt to suppress our interest rates, and we were able to produce a balanced budget for a year, but only if you exclude all the off-budget items, which they did, because every single year during the Clinton presidency, the national debt went up. So in reality, we never had a balanced budget. But they pretended it was balanced because they didn't count a lot of off-budget items that, were actually there. So, but yeah, I mean, and the reason we were able to achieve it somewhat is
1990s.
Republican
They got a lot of tax.
Democratic president, and so they were at odds with one another, and that is generally the best combination. And Clinton was a decent politician, and he saw that the Republicans got the House, and so he kind of worked with them. But the worst thing is when you have the same party that has both chambers, because then it's just Christmas, even if it's Republicans, because they just cut taxes, but they never cut spending. And so when you have a Republican president and a Republican Congress, you just get bigger deficits. They're only willing to go against deficit spending when they're in the opposition. So when there's a Democratic president, they're willing to oppose the Democratic president, but they'll give the Republican president whatever he wants. And so it's just going to end in disaster. Right now it's just terrible because look, the Republicans are about to sign a $5 trillion increase in the national debt, in the debt ceiling. That's the biggest increase in the debt ceiling ever. The Republicans.
Clinton was a decent politician, and he saw that the Republicans
is leading the charge. Trump is demanding that the Republicans in Congress increase the debt ceiling. Right? If he really wanted to reduce the debt, he would be demanding that the ceiling stay in place, so we can cut spending and balance the budget. I mean, the government collects $5 trillion in taxes. Why do we have to spend $7 trillion? Just spend 5. Cut 2 trillion. Elon Musk says, "Hey, I'm going to cut 2 trillion." Okay, fine, cut it. Cut. But no, that's all bullshit. They're not cutting anything. They're just talking about cutting. Look at what they do. Don't look at what they say. They're jacking up the debt ceiling because they're not cutting spending. They're increasing spending. Congress is going to spend more under Trump than it's spent under Biden. That's the reality. That's what's happening right now.
So another quick question then for you. So setting aside the earlier discussions about the Asian trade pact. So if we look at the Western allies, sort of longtime allies, so Canada, France, the UK, so on and so forth. How does the United States recover when you have Trump essentially accusing the strongest allies of essentially being enemies, and the enemies, in this case Russia, North Korea, so on and so forth, they're the allies? Like, how do you recover from that kind of?
I don't know. Again, to me, the guy said Messiah complex. I mean, it could be also a paranoia. Like the whole world is out to get us. Like everyone is screwing us over, right? And that sounds. I mean, the electorate kind of likes that. Like it's like, yeah, you tell him, Trump. Yeah, don't let people push us around anymore. No more Mr. Nice Guy. We need. He keeps saying all the other presidents were idiots, right? All the other presidents let this happen. I'm not going to let it happen. Well, you let it happen for the 4 years you were president the first time, right? Because the trade deficit went up. But he thinks everybody else is an idiot, and he's the only one that knows, right? And this is what we have to do. And he's getting support. But that support is going to go away as the obvious, catastrophe rears its head. So the question is, it's like, how many Republicans are going to go down with this ship? When are a few going to start abandoning ship? I mean, how much water do we have to be under before you start to see, the mutiny?
Well, and the other issue I'm also curious your thoughts on is we sort of see this big push to the orders to deport people and to sort of shut down immigration and this kind of thing. I mean, there's a large number of highly skilled individuals that are in need, whether it's engineers, whether it's medical professionals, whatever. Is there a worry or a concern from your part that as more of that sort of anti-immigration culture takes hold, that it's going to leave some U.S. economy?
Yeah, look, most of the anti-immigration stuff was, again, scapegoating. Yes, are there bad immigrants who have come in and committed crimes and committed murder? Absolutely. There's plenty of non-immigrants, people that are here legally, that are committing crimes and committing murder, right? So to me, it doesn't make, if I get robbed by a legal American, natural born, or an immigrant, I don't care. I mean, I don't want to get robbed. I don't think it's worse if the guy who robbed me is illegal. I mean, it's like, oh, I got robbed, but God, at least the guy was a legal citizen. No, I mean, I'm not going to be relieved because the guy that robbed me was here legally, right? I'm still robbed, right? But most of the people that are here illegally, that's the only law they broke. They're hardworking people trying to improve their lives, and so they came to America to improve their lives, to improve their families' lives. And so kicking them out is a net negative. I think that, yes, we're going to get rid of some bad hombres, but we're going to get rid of some good hombres. And we're going to get rid of more good people than we are bad people. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm in favor of illegal immigration. I want to make it easier for the good people to come in, right? But we don't do that. It's still a very cumbersome red tape. It's hard to get in. And I want to make it easier for people who want to come here and work and be honest to come in. But what's going on now is the bond market is on the lows here. We're about to go to 4.9 on the 30-year. We're 4.41 on the 10-year. But, I mean, this was not supposed to happen, right? We're getting a stock market crash where the bond market is crashing too. And the dollar is going down. So again, this is exactly what I said the end was going to look like. When you get the bond market going down, the stock market going down, the dollar going down, it is a run on U.S. assets. And remember, Donald Trump claimed that the tariffs were going to cause money to come into the country, right? Oh, all this money is going to come into America. It's leaving America. Money is fleeing the United States. So the money that is supposed to finance the build out of our factories is leaving the country. So the opposite, again, every time the government does something, the opposite of what they hope to achieve is what happens. So Trump was hoping to lure capital in. Hey, you want to avoid the tariffs? Just bring the capital here. Build it over here. So instead of causing money to come into the country, his tariffs are getting it sucked out of the country. That's what's happening.
So then you think that what he said right now he was wearing like a tuxedo with like a bow tie. He just said that everybody's kissing his ass. That the countries are calling him and they're kissing his ass.
Yeah, I would call that bluff. I think in his mind, that's what's happening. But in reality, I don't think there's any ass kissing going on at all. I mean, what's the point? I mean, what are you going to do? They put a 50-60% tariff on you. I mean, it's so absurd. What are they going to do? Oh, I'll lower it down to 30%. Again, if I was one of these countries, all I would be doing is trying to make deals with other countries to have more free trade. I'd say, look, the American market is gone. Fuck that. Let me figure out. Let's get something else going on. So I don't think anything. Just like the $5 trillion he claims has already been invested. Just bullshit. These guys they just talk. They just say whatever they feel like saying. Anyway, I got Peter. All right, I got what is that with somebody's got his hand up? MA or
That's MAGA Man.
MAGA Man.
Yeah, but
okay. You're the guy I want to hear from, MAGA Man.
Eric had his hand up first if you want to go down.
Has Eric already spoken? I think I
Yes, I've spoken. Go ahead, my guy. I was after.
Okay. Well, hey, Peter, how you doing? Hey, just just a heads up, man. If you make a co-host, you can have them bring up people and stuff like that. That might
But
make it a little
here's
easier
the
on
problem
you. So
I've
you
had
don't.
with co-hosts. They can never see all the people that have their hands up. They're like, oh, I can see like 5 people, and there's like 50 people that are requesting to speak. So they have a hard time seeing everybody.
Okay, so my question for you, and not so much a question, it's more of a statement, is that we didn't have tariffs before at all, right? We basically, it was a free for all, and you see these countries that have 90% tariffs or whatever that are bringing
that's
to
the
them.
point. Trump is making this shit up. Now,
But it's not. That's not. But they, so I'll make the statement,
Yeah.
and then you can have a rebuttal, right? So we have these countries like outside of Australia. You have a little island that's not even, no one lives there, but they funnel everything through that little island, or say that they're funneling it through that island, and charge us a 90% tariff from that island. So we basically reciprocate. Go, okay, we're going to give you a 45% tariff from anything coming from that island now. And in doing that, I think this whole tariff situation is basically to go, hey, we're just gonna eliminate tariffs all the way around, and we'll take away our 90%, you take away your 45%, and we'll call it a day. I think that's what the ultimate goal of these tariffs.
That's not what's happening. Because first of all, that little island doesn't have any tariffs at all, right? That's the point. The little island, is just got hit with these reciprocal tariffs. But again, the tariffs, no country charges us a tariff. They charge their own citizens the tariff. The tariff is not on the other country. No government can tax the citizens of another country. They can only tax their own citizens. So, but what Trump is doing, is every country has some tariffs on some of their goods, right? But the vast majority of goods have no tariffs or very low, 1%, 2%, 3%. Same in America. Like most of our goods have very low tariffs. But you'll find, like, I think pickup trucks, maybe we had 25% tariffs on like foreign pickup trucks. We've got huge tariffs on peanuts. We've got huge tariffs on sugar. There are certain agricultural products that we protect. And every country does the same thing, right? They have a couple of products where they have a high tariff. But the vast majority of the products have no tariff or a very low tariff. But what Trump has done is he is making up tariffs that do not exist. He is basically saying, oh, this country is charging us 60% tariffs, even if their average tariff is 4%. He's just made up a number and said 60 of another country. Where did he get that 60? From this cockamamie formula that just basically looks at exports and imports and total trade and concocts an arbitrary number that's got nothing to do with tariffs. And he just takes that number, let's say he gets 60, and says, oh, you have 60 number up. And then he says, oh, because you have 60% tariffs, we're going to reciprocate with 30. No, they have no tariffs, and you're just putting 30 on. The whole thing is false. And the whole idea that the reason we have deficits is because of cheating and tariffs of other countries is a lie. That yes, are there tariffs on some things? Yes, sure. Is that why we have $1 trillion a year trade deficit? No, not at all. And most of the stuff that are tariffs, it's all agriculture. So the products that countries are somehow keeping out are farm products, right? There's no tariffs on our manufactured goods. The reason we're not selling manufactured goods is not because of tariffs. That's nonsense. We're not selling them because we're not making them. That's why Americans have to buy all these foreign products, because we don't make them. And the guy that I was debating with, this guy Spencer, was saying, we've got the most efficient factories in the world. Well, of course we don't. If we had the most efficient factories in the world, we would be producing all the stuff that we're importing.
So with that being said, we've basically given our industrial away since the 70s, correct?
Right.
So we went off the over time, right? And it's not getting any better.
Worse.
So
it got worse under Trump. It got worse under Trump's first term, when he claimed we had the greatest economy in the history of the world.
Well, that's all manipulated, right? I mean, everything's manipulated. They're moving numbers around. I mean, you look in the last 4 years, Nvidia has basically held up the entire stock market. The S&P 500 is absolute dog crap. Anyone that believes that's true, they're the damn wrong, right? So everything has been manipulated grossly, and Trump has not even been in, 3 months now, and we're blaming all this on him now? I mean, this was all set up to fail.
Right, but
I mean,
he did accelerate the process. Look, he's going to be the fall guy now, but he did it to himself. So the dollar index is now down on the lows of the night. We're at 102.4. I think once the dollar index cracks below 100, it's going to free fall down to 90. And again, this is going to expose, because people were thinking that a strong dollar would take the sting out of the tariffs. Instead, it's going to make the tariffs sting that much more, because not only are goods going to be more expensive because of the tariffs, they're going to be more expensive because of the weak dollar. You know, and the weak dollar is what's going to get people to run from our bond market. So not only do we have prices for goods going up, interest rates are going to soar. I mean, this is stagflation that like we've never seen that we're coming. And, you know, and again, the Fed didn't even think this was possible, even though it was the most obvious outcome. That's how clueless the people at the Federal Reserve are. I mean, you talk about the blind leading the blind.
So it's no secret, right, that we're in debt 36 trillion, right? That everybody here knows that. Probably going to be 37 here shortly.
Probably already is over 30. The numbers aren't rising fast enough because of the debt ceiling. Once they raise the debt ceiling, you're going to see that number jump maybe at 2 trillion. It'll all of a sudden go to 38 trillion. But I mean,
but wouldn't a weak dollar help it?
Well, a weak
As far as
but it's going to push up interest rates. And our deficits are going to get bigger.
So defunct on it, okay, now we can print it and just be done with it.
When a pack of chewing gum costs $1 trillion, the debt doesn't mean anything anymore, right? So but then we've destroyed our currency, and
well, then we go to a different monetary system, right? You go to like a gold-backed system,
you've wiped out everybody. You've wiped out the baby boom. Nobody has a retirement account anymore. Everybody, I mean, so you wipe out the currency. I mean, who the hell knows what's going to happen? I mean, you know, they got Adolf Hitler in Germany where they had hyperinflation. Ours could be worse than Weimar. And you know, I mean, Donald Trump ain't Hitler, but you know, he's not even close to Hitler. But you never know who could come to power in that kind of economic crisis. You know.
No, I don't disagree with that, right? I mean, you don't want to, bad times create weak men or whatever, weak men, so on and so on, right? Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, Andrew. I've talked to both Peter and Andrew on this app before. It's
pizza into a bar to play music.
when I was in college, I bought this book called The Federal Mafia. His dad, Erwin Schiff, wrote it. And he had this.
That is the most famous tax resistor in American history, I think.
Yeah, he had this big sign in Vegas on the Strip saying like "Pay no income tax." And,
I remember.
Yeah, he pissed.
Do you know how you know what Andrew? Andrew's an unusual fellow. I mean, I think they're a little bit like autistic or something. I don't know, but they're fine. And Peter's very successful and has an amazing life.
Yeah.
And Andrew said to you, "Do you know how Erwin Schiff died?"
Yeah.
He died like chained to a bed in prison.
Yeah.
Handcuffed to a bed.
Yep.
That
Isn't
is
that
no way
crazy?
to go. And what's that?
It's crazy, isn't it?
Well, he was very stiff-necked, as they say about our people. And the judge would, you know, he was openly contemptuous, not contemptuous meaning defiant, I should say, not contemptuous. He was openly defiant in court of judges over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, he had plenty of opportunities to not die handcuffed to a bed.
Yeah,
like,
well.
you know, the judge gave him 10 years, and he was literally.
Yeah, but they made a case. They made an example of him because he was known as a tax protester. So, you know, he was a victim of really the legal, political, industrial complex, the judges, really.
But he could have gotten off that train, you know, with a slap on the wrist. He did not have to die.
I know, but he made it a political. I mean, it's a lot of information with regards to what he was publishing, what he was saying, the news, and his movement, and because you got to understand, he inspired a lot of people, so he caused a big
The bottom
problem.
line is he's freaking crazy.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, it's not true that you can just not pay your taxes because it's not in the Constitution, blah, blah, blah. That's crazy.
I know, but in his book, he makes a legal case for it based off of, the history and everything else. And so it doesn't matter. I mean, it's his opinion, but the problem is, like, it's
I know
unfortunate.
that you know a thing or two. Were you in the room the other night when we were pointing out that, they hate Israel because it's colonialist, quote unquote, but they love the Ottoman Turks, man. They were like brutal colonizers who weren't of the land.
Mhm.
They were literally colonizers and conquerors. Were you the one that was there when we pointed this out?
I don't know. That comes up a lot in these rooms.
In any event, so in any other country in history, if you don't pay the taxes, they chop your head off, or they throw you in jail, or they cut your hands off. Like America, they gave him the chance to plead his case.
Yeah, but he had a publishing business, and like his books were going global because it's political. So it's just an interesting story. I mean, I'm listening to Peter here.
It's very interesting.
Yeah,
Right now?
Yeah, Peter's in X right now in a room called Zero Hedge After Party Tariff Q&A, and he's talking about the economy and Trump's tariffs.
Is it good?
It's fast. Peter Schiff has a way of communicating. He's like a hype man, or he causes panic.
Yes.
He wants
Doesn't he sell gold or something?
He's a financial advisor. He wants you to invest. He owns ETFs that trade. Like, you can just quickly buy a Peter Schiff ETF. So
I know that he's fat. He's quite wealthy. I know this.
I think his net worth is like 20 million. But
Well, I mean,
it's nice.
I don't know how many people are in the room. I mean, I know people who were making that like quarterly.
Yeah, that's wild.
Making it, and then, for decades. What's that? But I mean, I still think it's a nice hustle, and he's got his place on Nantucket or whatever, lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, the government seized his bank and still hasn't returned the money to his depositors. So he probably wants to run for Senate or Congress.
What does that mean? That he had a bank?
Yeah, he had a bank in Puerto Rico, and the government seized it, and they took all the depositors' money, and they're still suing to get it back.
I don't even understand that.
You can Google it if you want.
Speaking of scams, I mean, that guy's never going to get out of jail, right? Sam Bankman-Fried.
I don't know if he's ever going to get out.
He's going to be an old man. I mean, that guy, he ripped everybody off. He stole billions of dollars. It's a total scheme. And he was selling virtue. He was a left-winger, wokey, vegetarian,
It's funny if you think about him, like, using the money and spending the money. Like, do you think like, he even knew how to enjoy it? I mean, have you seen the guy? He's
Yeah.
I mean, he's pathetic beyond belief.
Yeah, and the girlfriend too.
Oh, it's fucking. I mean, that's so crazy though. Like, I mean, the question is, did he even enjoy it?
I mean, I think these people are, they have mental illness.
That's the thing about what's that movie Rain Man with Dustin Hoffman?
Yeah, Tom Cruise.
Yeah, there's people like that. Enjoys his luxury. I think he's like a minimalist maybe, and I just don't understand why people are minimalists when they accumulate all this money, because
it's more fun to have a vision. It's more fun to make something than it is to spend money. It's funny, this came up last night, these three Hollywood stars. In Hollywood, it's a lot about ego, more, say, than an industrialist or an entrepreneur. Three Hollywood stars who live very simple lives. Tommy Lee Jones, worth $100 million. Dustin Hoffman worth $100 million. William Dafoe worth $20 million. And they stay home. William Dafoe likes to ride his bicycle, to the set. He doesn't take a chauffeur. And he doesn't buy, he lives in a modest apartment. He doesn't buy designer things or labels or anything like that. You've sort of hinted at it. I don't know, somebody is texting me here. You've sort of hinted at the people who worship ego, or who are sadistically aggressive, anti-Semitic, or people who are like weirdly virtue signaling and woke. Everybody's missing the boat with this stuff. And you said this yourself: breathe some fresh air and read a book. So what you're saying about spending your wealth, I've been around, jaw-dropping, with the kind of wealth where you couldn't spend it if you lived, 5 lifetimes. There's way more people who have to give away millions every year just to avoid the taxes, and those people are not any happier than you and me.
Yeah. I know
They're not.
it's funny. It's because the expiration clock going to prison. I mean, we're not coming back, and everybody is born penniless and dies penniless. So I know a lot of people that have insane amount of money, and their kids are alcoholics, and
Yeah.
they don't exercise, and they're unhealthy. They'll never have
Life is
kids.
painful.
Yeah.
And people become narcissistic and spoiled and egotistical and flawed, and they avoid their shortcomings, and so the shortcomings, they sneak up on them from behind and ruin their lives. By the way, you changed a lot on this app and became like very sociable and normal, and talked in your what did something change in you like I don't know, 9 months ago or something?
No, I mean, it's basically if I'm screaming and yelling, I mean, it's all a shtick. Like I'm recording myself. So,
Well, there was like a bunch of, oh my God, you're recording. People were like, oh, he's recording us. Oh, get rid of him. And like very nice people who you never attacked, like Elena, because she was unconscious. You just sort of left, or like you had your set of rules. You're like Steve Appel. Do you get to? I mean, you could stay in Steve Appel's room if you didn't do anything wrong. Did he kick you out? I can't remember.
I mean, he's just an obnoxious person. He doesn't, he doesn't go with the flow. I heard somebody said he's blind. Is that true? I don't know. I've seen his YouTube videos. I'm like, doesn't look blind to me.
I haven't seen his YouTube videos. Edward is blind. He's very fair and he's consistent. He's very
read for 60 seconds, then he kicks me to the goo, or he kicks me from the room. So it's like,
don't you have thoughts on things? You could, instead of doing the parody,
I do. I mean, it's how many times am I going to do it though? It's like I've been in that room 100 times. I've been recording him for years. It's like, there's a point where it's like I move on because nobody on this app moves on. They're all just still stuck in the same place where they were years ago. There's nothing new coming out of them. It's the same show. It's the same recording. It's the same deja vu.
You're talking to the biggest schmuck on Clubhouse.
I mean, this guy too. This guy is so
don't
pathetic.
Don't throw him out. He's not. There's something underneath. Maybe I'm fascinated by unusual minds, but he has a cosmology, Randy. He has a perspective. He's not the biggest schmuck on Clubhouse by any means.
It's just a libertarian perspective. It's fiscal conservatism. I mean, we're $40 trillion. We're screwed.
Yes, Adrian Dittman.
Yeah, but Adrian doesn't do shit. He just comes and like disturbs and gets kicked.
Oh, sometimes I talk to him. I talk to him sometimes.
Oh, he only.
To load up on these mining stocks. Great portfolio, the Euro Pacific Gold Fund. In fact, anybody wants to buy it, no load. It's EP anywhere. Up the truck, because the upside is so high. Yeah, there's risk. I could be wrong. You can lose some money, but it's like an asymmetric trade. Right now, what I would do is buy the mining stocks, and after you get the first triple, maybe take some profits and then use that.
Did you ever see that movie about Dead Man Walking?
No, I've heard of it.
And obviously it's an expression. Well, you really
So that's what I would do right now is buy the gold mining stocks and get the gold in the ground, and then buy my above ground gold later. when I'm taking some profits on my gold position. I wouldn't sell out all of them because I think we're going a lot higher. But, take some money off the table and then, buy some physical.
Yeah, I'm all for buying different assets and diversifying and rotating assets. So if let's just say, for instance, if the banks did fail and all of these hedge funds that have been swimming naked for however long, that have been shorting these mining stocks that we've been in, if they are basically get margin called, I guess that would basically.
They're dumb enough to be short these stocks, they're going to get their ass handed to them. Because one day we're just going to gap up, right? Let's say we have a crisis and we come to work. Let's say overnight, I don't know. Let's say people show up at work tomorrow and gold is up $200 or $300 just on the open. Then what? These stocks are so cheap that the stocks they might have such an order imbalance that they don't even open them. Look, this shit is going to happen. Just the question is, does it happen tomorrow? Does it happen next week? Next month? It's going to happen. Peter, yeah.
Is there a potential problem where, if you look at Trump's background, he's a real estate guy. That's really what he is. And so real estate guys, historically speaking, and throughout my lifetime, have always been, low interest people, right? So they leverage everything they have on low interest rates and on the bet that interest rates will be low. And so is it possible that Trump's really bad economic thinking stems from his overabundance of real estate history? Is that possible?
Yeah, he views things from the prism of a borrower. And so from a borrower's perspective, low interest rates are always good. But from a lender's perspective, higher interest rates are better than low interest rates. But yeah, he only sees the good side of low interest rates, and he doesn't see the downside. He doesn't see the damage it does. And he does know that Americans, unfortunately, have a lot of debt. And the reason we have so much debt is because interest rates have been too low for too long. So low interest rates would help out all the debtors. But the only way we can get low interest rates in this country is if the Fed prints a bunch of money and buys bonds. So the only way we can get low interest rates is to create higher inflation, which is also a problem. And ironically, as you create more inflation, you make bonds even less attractive. And now the market wants to sell bonds to push rates higher because interest rates have to compensate you for what you lose to inflation. So the more inflation you create, the higher the interest rates need to be. But you're creating inflation to lower interest rates, so it's counterproductive. But eventually, it just produces a collapse, and that's where we're headed. But I'm going to take one or two more questions.
Thank you for answering.
I don't want to go past midnight. It's 11:52, and I've been at this since 7 o'clock because that's when I started doing the zero heads debate. So I can take let me see if there's one last guy. Then I got to go to bed and I got to rest. So okay. Oh, that's MAGA guy. But does anybody else want to talk? I got a few of you. Yeah, Nolo or just somebody.
Yes. Peter. Yeah. What are your just a quick question? I know that you probably didn't want to talk about this, but we're getting really awfully close to Michael Saylor's cost basis buy-in. Do you think he's going to get margin called? And are you hoping that he does?
Well, I don't think he can get a margin call in that he didn't borrow on margin. He sold convertible notes. And there are various covenants on those notes and things like that. So I don't think he's going to be forced to sell right away. But what I think is going to happen is he's going to lose access to capital. Because the way he's been able to produce his so-called Bitcoin yield is MicroStrategy stock trades at a premium to Bitcoin. And so when he sells stock and convertible notes at a higher price and then takes the money and buys Bitcoin, he ends up increasing the Bitcoin per share as he's increasing the overall share count and levering up the balance sheet. But he's able to show that now each share has more Bitcoin. Well, what's going to happen is MicroStrategy stock made that same prediction, and I was right about the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust when it was closed in, that it would go from a premium to a discount, and it did. And everything I said would happen happened. So what's going to happen is his shares are going to go to a discount to the Bitcoin.
Those notes and
The
things
minute
like
that
that. So
happens, he can't issue any more stock, he can't borrow any more money, because he would then have a negative Bitcoin yield. Because if he has to sell stock at a discount, then every time he sells stock and buys Bitcoin, the yield would be negative. So he can't do that. So once his stock goes to a discount to its Bitcoin, MicroStrategy can no longer buy any Bitcoin. Well, MicroStrategy has been the big buyer. Not only have they been the big buyer, but since everybody knows that MicroStrategy is going to keep buying, other people have bought to front run his buying. So once the biggest buyer on the market is sidelined and can no longer buy, A, he can't support the price anymore, but B, the other people who were buying because he was buying, well, they're not buying anymore either. Now they're selling. And the other reason that people were thinking that, people would buy Bitcoin was they thought the U.S. government was going to buy it. Well, once we're in a complete collapse, the last thing anyone's going to be talking about is buying Bitcoin for the strategic reserve when Bitcoin is crashing along with everything else. So, yeah, I think MicroStrategy is eventually going to go bankrupt, but it might take a couple more years. But before he's forced to sell his Bitcoin. But anyway, I got to get going. So on that note, look, I thank everybody for staying up. But tell all your friends to, this Spaces is going to be on Twitter, on X, excuse me. More people have got to hear it. More people have got to follow me, especially the MAGA people, because I have a lot of sympathy with MAGA people. A lot of the things that Trump says are correct. He's just going about it in the complete wrong way. His heart might be in the right place, but his head is not. And people need to know the truth. And people think, if my criticism must mean I was a never Trumper. No, I wasn't, right? I'm a free market, libertarian Republican. But I understand economics, and I understand finance, and I know it's about to go down. And I love the country. I want to see it succeed. I can't help that it's failing. It's not my fault that it's failing. I've done everything I can to put the right information out there, and nobody cares. Nobody, because everybody wants to shoot the messenger because they don't like the message. Even though it's a message of freedom and prosperity and everything that made America great. But we got to get more people to understand this. And that's the other reason I've always wanted, my clients to invest in this strategy, because I know when everything crashes, I think my clients will end up with a lot of money. My clients will be rich and everybody else will be broke. But that also means that my clients will be in a position to help out, right? Because if you go broke, you're struggling. It's like if you're on a ship and it sinks, and you're on the same ship into a lifeboat. When the ship goes down, now you can come up in your boat and help people out of the water. So that's how I thought. I've been getting people in this lifeboat for a long time because the ship is taking longer to sink. So, people should, go to the Europac website, Europac.com. It's not too late to sell your U.S. stocks. They're still ridiculously expensive, even if we didn't have these tariffs. That's how ridiculous it is. Because the market is still overpriced. Even if we had no tariffs at all, even if we weren't about to hit a financial crisis. And foreign stocks have been dragged down a bit, even though they're doing good on the year. They've been dragged down in the last week. So it's a great time to sell foreign U.S. stocks and buy foreign stocks, and I can help you do it. I got guys at Europac.com. You can get on the phone tomorrow, and we can help you, build, the crash-proof portfolio. Prepare for the real crash, because there's a good chance that it's around the corner. Anyway, that's it for tonight. And
Peter, can you do me a favor? Can you give me a follow? I'd like to interview you and help shed a little bit of light.
It's all my scheduling. Paul at ShiftRadio.com. All right.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Bye. sense that it's around the corner. Anyway, that's it for tonight. And
Peter, can you do me a favor? Can you give me a follow? I'd like to interview you and help shed a little bit.
Are you guys talking about anything? Peter Schiff ended his podcast program. It's the same thing every time he talks. It's all doom and gloom, and he's got the recession-proof portfolio that you need. Go to Europac.com and talk to one of his wealth advisors today. We got a doctor in the house. Because my Republicans clubhouse.
Let's just say last 90 days.